Welcome to Hungarian Insights, your go-to channel for exploring Hungary's rich history, vibrant culture, and language learning resources. Whether you're a student planning to study in Hungary, an expat eager to grasp the nation's heritage, an individual preparing for the Hungarian citizenship exam, or a bilingual student seeking to complement your studies, our podcasts serve as a captivating starting point, and our smart, modern learning tips and resources are tailored to make your journey enjoyable and effective.
Welcome to our Hungary Insights podcast. I'm Mark.
And I'm Emma.
All right, ready to dive in. Today we're exploring a place that, I gotta admit, was a bit of a mystery to me before we started prepping. Hungary.
Yeah, it's one of those countries that kind of flies under the radar, but it's packed with surprises.
Totally. So let's start with the basics for anyone listening who might be picturing like windmills and tulips when they think of Hungary, which, spoiler alert, is not quite accurate. Where exactly is Hungary on the map?
Okay, picture this. East Central Europe, right in the heart of it all. And geographically, it's nestled in this unique formation called the Carpathian Basin.
Carpathian Basin. Sounds pretty epic. So we're not talking coastlines and beaches here, are we?
Yeah.
More like landlocked and mountainous.
You got it. No beaches, but they do have some pretty impressive rivers. The Danube, for one, cuts right through Hungary. And then there's the Tisa River. Plus, they've got Lake Balaton, the biggest lake in Central Europe, which is pretty cool.
Okay, mountains, plains, rivers, a huge lake.
Yeah.
Starting to get a more dynamic picture here. Speaking of size, how big is Hungary compared to, say, a U.S. state?
Size-wise, it's about 93,000 square kilometers, so think roughly the size of Indiana. Not tiny, but definitely not a sprawling giant either. And get this, it's got count 'em, 7 neighboring countries.
7 neighbors. Wow, that's got to make for a pretty interesting mix of cultures and influences. How many people are we talking about in Hungary these days?
Population's around 9 million. Most are ethnic Hungarians, but there are also sizable communities of Germans, Romanians, Slovaks, and a whole bunch of others. Really reflects that crossroads history.
A real melting pot. And of course, we can't forget the language. I've heard Hungarian is notoriously difficult to learn. What's the story there?
Ah, yes, the Hungarian language. It's what we call a linguistic isolate, meaning it's not related to any other major European languages. It's like its own little branch on the language tree.
A lone wolf, linguistically speaking.
Exactly. Totally
Okay.
different structure and grammar compared to, say, English, German, or French. Even the sentence structure is totally different.
Okay, starting to paint a picture here. Mountains, plains, a mix of languages and cultures, a linguistic lone wolf. What about the political side of things? How is Hungary run?
Politically, it's a republic with a parliamentary system, so they have both a president, the head of state, and a prime minister who's actually leading the government day to day.
So similar to a lot of European countries in that sense. And speaking of Europe, I know Hungary's been part of the EU for a while now. When did they join?
They joined back in 2004, which opened up a lot of doors for them economically and politically. Think increased trade, closer cooperation with other European nations, and all that comes with being in the EU club.
Right, like a big club with its own set of perks and rules. What about other international organizations? Is Hungary involved in any beyond the EU?
Oh yeah, definitely. They're a member of NATO too, so they're part of that collective defense agreement.
So they're committed to working with their allies on security issues, that kind of thing.
Yep. And they're also part of the OECD, the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. They're working with other countries on stuff like economic growth and social policies, pretty plugged into the global network.
It sounds like they're really active on the world stage.
Yeah.
Okay, so we've covered the structure, the geography, the politics. But what about daily life? What's it like for the average person living in Hungary?
Well, in a lot of ways, it's pretty similar to life in other developed European countries. They've got a strong social safety net, so things like healthcare and education are taken care of. Economically, they're doing pretty well, though they haven't switched over to the euro yet.
So overall, a decent quality of life then.
Yeah, I'd say so. Of course, every country has its challenges, but for the most part, Hungary offers a good standard of living for its citizens.
Right. No country's perfect. Okay, so
Yeah.
that's a pretty positive picture so far. But we do know that there are some, let's say, lively discussions happening within Hungary right now. What are some of the hot-button topics that are shaping the national conversation?
Well, one that's been in the news a lot is income inequality. Like many places, Hungary's dealing with a growing gap between the rich and the poor, and that sparks a lot of debate about fairness and opportunity.
Makes sense. It's a global issue, but it plays out differently in every country.
Hmm.
What about social issues? Anything particularly divisive being debated in Hungary?
Yeah, there are definitely ongoing conversations about LGBTQ plus rights and immigration policies, much like in many parts of the world. These are complex issues with a lot of different viewpoints, so it's important to approach them with sensitivity and nuance.
Absolutely. Understanding all sides is key, especially when we're just getting to know a country. It's a reminder that even within a place that seems, from the outside, kind of homogenous, there's always a whole spectrum of opinions and experiences. Okay, so we've got a good overview of Hungary's geography, demographics, the political structure. We even touched on some of the economic and social challenges they face. But what about the fun stuff? Let's talk about what makes Hungary culturally unique and vibrant.
Well, where do you even start? Hungarian culture is this fascinating blend of influences from East and West. They've got spicy food, soulful folk music, intricate embroidery, lively folk dances. There's really something for everyone.
Okay, I'm all ears. I'm ready to be wowed. Hit me with some of those highlights.
Let's start with something that's close to the heart of Hungarian culture: folk music.
Folk music. Okay, what's so special about it?
Well, Hungarian folk music has these distinct melodies and rhythms. You'll often hear instruments like the cimbalom, that's a kind of hammered dulcimer, and the tarogato, a woodwind instrument with a really haunting sound.
Okay, I can already picture a dimly lit pub somewhere with musicians huddled around playing these incredible instruments, playing tunes that have been passed down for generations. It sounds pretty evocative.
You're getting it. There's a real depth of emotion in Hungarian folk music. And it's not just about listening. They have these traditional folk dances that are super lively and energetic.
Lots of stomping and clapping, I bet.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And colorful costumes, too. It's a real community thing, everyone dancing together.
Sounds like a party. I'm sensing a theme here. A real passion and energy that seems to run through Hungarian culture.
You're picking up on it. And you see that same attention to detail and passion in their folk art. The embroidery is amazing, intricate floral patterns and bold colors. And the pottery is known for its unique glazes.
Oh, yeah. I've seen pictures of that stuff. Gorgeous. It's amazing how they keep those traditions alive.
It really shows how important preserving their heritage is to them.
And speaking of heritage, we got to talk about literature. Hungary has some seriously remarkable authors.
Okay, confessing here. Hungarian literature is a total blind spot for me. Any authors you'd recommend for a newbie?
One of the most famous is Sándor Márai. His novels and diaries are incredible. He really gets into the human condition, love, loss, and what it means to be Hungarian.
Sándor Márai. Okay, going on the list. Anything else I should check out?
If you want something a bit lighter, try Frigyes Karinthy. He was a master of humor and satire, and his writing is still really popular today. Perfect. A little humor is always good. So, folk music, dance, art, literature, anything we're missing when it comes to the essence of Hungarian culture.
How could I forget? The food. That's a whole other deep dive in itself.
The food, of course. I think I know where this is going. Paprika. Tell us everything.
Paprika is definitely a cornerstone of Hungarian cuisine, but it's more than just a spice. It's practically woven into their culinary DNA, used in a ton of dishes, from hearty stews and spicy sausages to flavorful sauces, and even some desserts, believe it or not.
So it's not just about adding heat. It's about adding depth and flavor to all kinds of dishes.
Oh.
Okay, so besides paprika, what else should we know about Hungarian food?
Well, get ready for some rich, flavorful dishes. You've got to try goulash, the classic Hungarian stew. It's usually made with beef, onions, paprika, of course, and often potatoes or other veggies. Comfort food at its best.
Goulash. Finally, I get to hear about the famous goulash.
It's a must-try if you ever visit Hungary. And another one to put on your list is chicken paprikash. It's this creamy, paprika-infused dish, usually served with dumplings or noodles.
Okay, my mouth is watering. I might need to rethink my dinner plans tonight. And I remember you mentioned something about Hungarian wines earlier. What's the wine scene like?
Hungary has a long history of winemaking going back centuries. One of their most famous wines is called Tokaj Azú. It's a sweet dessert wine, often called liquid gold, because of its rich, complex flavors.
Liquid gold.
Yeah.
That sounds pretty decadent. I guess I'll have to try it and see for myself.
You won't regret it. And they make other great wines too, from dry whites to full-bodied reds. They've got diverse climates and grape varieties, which makes for some interesting and unique wines.
Okay, Hungarian wine tasting is officially on my bucket list.
Yeah.
It's amazing how all these different pieces come together, the music, the art, the food, the wine, to create a whole cultural experience.
It really does. And that's what makes Hungary so captivating. It's a country that honors its traditions while still moving forward, constantly changing and growing. It's a dynamic cultural landscape that's just begging to be explored further.
Well said.
Sure.
I'm already feeling more intrigued by Hungary than I was before we started. It's incredible how much there is to uncover in a place that often gets overlooked.
Exactly. And that's what we're all about here on the Deep Dive. There's always more to discover, always another layer to peel back.
Well, I'm ready for that next layer. We've covered a lot of ground already, from paprika to liquid gold, but there's still so much more to explore.
Oh, absolutely. We've only just scratched the surface. There's a whole world of history, politics, and culture waiting to be uncovered. And that's exactly what we're going to do when we come back.
Our podcast discussions are based on our ebook, Hungary's Hall of Fame in a Nutshell. History, literature, art, music, science, sport. Scan the QR code or check the link in the description to download your copy of Hungary's Hall of Fame in a Nutshell. As a special bonus, you'll also receive the Illustrated Companion, featuring over 100 detailed illustrations to visually enrich your understanding of the book's content. Thank you for watching.